You know what our agreement was, Zach?
What?
If you tell me I'm lying to you, but you have the right to as my brother.
You don't got no paperwork, Wack. Stop it.
That's what you think, Zach?
Wack.
Okay, you know what you got to do when I send it to you, right? Here it comes. His daddy been a rat since 2009.
Stop it, Wack. Stop it, Wack. Yo, what?
Okay. Hear what I just sent you.
Yo, where does Wack go?
Listen,
This nigga said
that's
daddy
the
been
full
a rat.
file. I'm gonna send you.
Yo, Wack, stop it,
No,
bro.
I'm about to send you where he ratted. Listen, the nigga been a rat since 09. I'm sending you all the work. Pooh Shiesty was 8 or 9 years old, so this is his pop, live and direct. Now, listen, you know the exposures. We sit back because I'm a strong representation when it comes to Gucci. That's bro.
The man known as a mob boss just got exposed, and not by the streets but by his own paperwork. Lantrell Williams Sr., father of Pooh Shiesty, has been sitting on a federal secret for over 15 years. While he was out here building a reputation as one of South Memphis's most respected street figures, while his son was rapping about him like he was untouchable, the mob boss was allegedly feeding information to the United States government. Real names, real details, real cooperation. The kind that gets you a 5K, one motion filed on your behalf. The kind that gets your sentence reduced because prosecutors found your assistance substantial enough to reward. That's not a rumor. That's allegedly in the documents. And the man who pulled those documents out and put them in front of the world, Wack 100, love him or hate him, he came with paperwork. Now, here's where this gets deeper than you think. Because most people saw the headline, Pooh Shiesty and his dad arrested for kidnapping and robbing Gucci Mane, and thought that was a story. But the real story is what Wack uncovered underneath it. A 2007 federal case, a 2009 corporation clause, and a plea deal that allegedly included an agreement to provide ongoing assistance to the government with hope for future cooperation. Future cooperation. That means this wasn't a one-time thing. That means the man Pooh called his first co-defendant in his own lyrics. The man he said showed him the lanes was allegedly also showing the lanes to federal prosecutors at the same time for years. That's the story. And it's bigger than any beef, any arrest, any headline you've seen this week. Let me break it all the way down. Let me break it down for you, because to understand how all of this falls apart, you got to understand who Lantrell Williams Sr. really is, or at least who he claimed to be. In South Memphis, the name mob boss carried serious weight. We're talking about a man who in the late 90s and early 2000s was operating one of the most popping nightclubs in the city, Club Martini. If you know, you know. Drug dealers, athletes, street figures, everybody passed through. This wasn't just a club, fam. This was a power move. This was a mob boss planting his flag and saying, I run this. And for a long time, the streets believed it. Now, fast forward a little bit. Mob boss has a son, Lantrell Williams Jr. You might know him better as Pooh Shiesty. The same Pooh Shiesty who linked with Gucci Mane, signed to 1017 records, dropped Back in Blood with Lil Durk, and went 8 times platinum. The same Pooh Shiesty who rapped about his daddy on record, calling him his first card, said his father jumped in the streets and showed him the lanes and bars, right? Sounds like a legacy. Sounds like a real one. Sounds like the kind of lineage the streets respect. But here's the real tea. Because what Pooh didn't know, what a lot of people didn't know, is that mob boss had already been playing a very different kind of game long before any of those bars were ever written. April 2026. The situation is already blazing hot. On that call, Wack 100 drops something that changes the entire conversation. He's not just talking about the current case. He's going deeper, further back. He's peeling back layers that the mob boss spent years burying. Wack alleges with paperwork to back it up that Lantrell Williams Sr. has been cooperating with the federal government since at least 2009. That's not a theory. That's not internet gossip. According to Wack, that's written in black and white in federal documents from a 2007 case that came to a head in 2009. Let me say that again for the people in the back. Mob boss, the man from South Memphis, the man who helped build the myth of Pooh Shiesty, the man Pooh literally rapped about as his foundation, allegedly has a documented ongoing relationship with federal prosecutors going back to when Pooh was still in elementary school. And here's where it gets crazy. Because WAC 100 doesn't just say a mob boss cooperated once and moved on. He alleges that the plea deal Williams Sr. took included a clause, a specific legal provision that described his assistance to the government as ongoing with a hope for future cooperation. That phrase, future cooperation, in federal documents isn't nothing, gang. That's government language for this man is an active asset. This man is still useful to us. This man is still talking. The specific guideline reference 5K1. 1. For those who don't know federal law, and you all should know this, 5K1.1 is a provision that allows a federal judge to sentence a defendant below the mandatory minimum if the government files a motion saying that person provided substantial assistance. In street terms, you only get that motion filed for you if you gave up real information, real names, real details, and real cooperation. And the mob boss, according to this paperwork, was in line for exactly that. Now, let me bring you all back to that opening story because now it hits different. Remember the shooting I told you about? The one people thought took the mob boss out? The one where his sister actually caught the bullet while he walked away unharmed? Think about what happened after that incident. Think about the timing. Think about who was there and who made it out fine. And then think about the decision that followed. Because that incident, that near miss, that trauma, that moment where things could have gone very differently for the mob boss, seems to have pushed him further into the arms of the very people street culture says you never deal with. The feds. Now, I'm not here to tell you what a man should do when his family gets caught in the crossfire. That's a real situation. That's a human moment. But here's what I will say. If you've been building a reputation in the streets for decades, if your son is out here rapping about how you showed him the lanes, and if you are literally known as a mob boss, then the path you choose after something like that matters. It speaks volumes. It tells the story of who you really are. And the story the paperwork tells is not the story the streets were sold. Now, here's where people started connecting the dots. And when they did, it all made a terrifying kind of sense. Think about Pooh Shiesty's first major legal situation back in 2020. A shooting in Florida, a double shooting in Miami-Dade. The FBI gets involved. PUH ends up indicted, facing potential life in prison. He takes a plea deal, one count, for 63 months. He walks away from 3 additional charges, including one that carried a life sentence. At the time, WAC 100 was already sniffing around. He got on Clubhouse. Remember when everybody was on Clubhouse? And he started telling people that PUH had cooperated. PUH's lawyer, Bradford Cohen, went ballistic, called it fake news, said no proffer was given, and said none of the co-defendants gave information on anyone else. PUH himself got on Instagram and denied it, breaking down the difference between a factual offer and a cooperation agreement. Now, here's the thing. I'm not here to relitigate whether PUH snitched in that case. His lawyer made clear arguments. His co-defendants all took similar pleas. Multiple people have said the story doesn't add up the way WAC presented it. But what WAC was really doing, even if he didn't fully realize it at the time, was pointing in the right direction. He was circling the family. He was saying something is off here. He was telling anyone who'd listen that the Williams family's relationship with the government wasn't what it appeared to be. And now with mob boss's own alleged paperwork sitting out there with a 5K loan, one motion in his past with an ongoing cooperation clause in a 2009 federal case, the streets are starting to wonder if WAC was asking the right questions all along about just the wrong member of the family. And then there's this. Pooh Shiesty's most recent song, FDO, dropped after his October 2025 release from prison. In that song, he rapped, "See, my daddy, my first code, jumped in the streets. He showed me Lane's gang. He literally put his dad in his bars as his co-defendant, his ride or die, and his foundation. And now they are both actually co-defendants in a federal kidnapping case together in handcuffs. Sometimes the lyrics write the story before the story happens. And sometimes the story ends very differently than the lyrics promised. Let me make sure you all have the full picture of what they're actually charged with right now because this is wild on its own. Even before you layer in all the history. January 10th, 2026. 3 music industry professionals travel to Dallas, Texas. They are told there's a meeting. The meeting is about Pooh Shiesty's recording contract with 1017 Records. Gucci Mane's label. Sounds like a business situation. Sounds standard. It was not standard. According to the Department of Justice, Pooh Shiesty and 8 other men, including rapper Big 30, turned that studio into a crime scene. PUH allegedly pulled out an AK-style pistol. He allegedly forced one of the victims to sign a release from his recording contract at gunpoint. The other defendant allegedly robbed the remaining victims of Rolex watches, jewelry, cash, and other high-value items. One victim was allegedly choked until they nearly lost consciousness. 9 people charged. Federal kidnapping, federal robbery, all of it carrying the possibility of life in prison. The feds confirmed that Gucci Mane, Roderick Davis, identified Pooh Shiesty as a man who robbed him. Gucci Mane identified as Pooh Shiesty pointed a gun to his head, and the DOJ says Lantrell Williams, a senior mob boss, helped plan and execute the whole thing. Now, here's the irony that the internet can't stop talking about. Gucci Mane, who is identified in the federal complaint by his initials Rode, is the one who cooperated with the DOJ in this case. He identified PUH and Big 30 as his attackers. He described what Pooh was wearing. He gave them everything they needed. And immediately people started resurfacing an old Gucci Mane Instagram live where he famously said, and I'm paraphrasing, that he doesn't believe in telling police that he keeps it in the street. That's the only rule he lives by. The internet went crazy. Old clip, new context, whole different meaning. But here's my take, and I know some of you might not want to hear it. There's a difference between what happens in the streets and what happens when you walk into a studio for a legitimate business meeting, and armed men take over the room and put a gun to your head. Those are not the same situation. That's not a beef. That's not a dispute. That's a crime committed against you in a professional setting. The real conversation shouldn't be about whether Gucci snitched.